There was a time when you walked into the pharmacy not for aspirin, but for a spinning stool, a marble counter, and a soda jerk who knew your order before you sat down. The pills were in the back. The real business happened up front, where syrup pumps hissed and ice cream scoops clinked against glass. That whole world is gone now, and almost nobody under 60 remembers what actually disappeared with it. Here's what this video promises you. By the end, you'll understand why an entire American ritual, one built on sugar, carbonation, and small-town trust, vanished so completely that most of these drinks and desserts don't even have a name anymore. There are 25 of them. Some you'll recognize. Most you won't. All of them tell you something bigger about how convenience quietly killed community, one counter at a time. Let's count them down. The chocolate phosphate. A phosphate wasn't just flavored soda water. It was soda water, a shot of acid phosphate to sharpen the fizz, and a pump of chocolate syrup, all built right in front of you in a tall glass. The jerk would tilt the glass under the carbonator, letting the stream hiss and foam to the rim without a drop spilling. It tasted sharper than a modern soda, almost electric on the tongue. Phosphates died because bottling companies standardized sweetness, and nobody wanted a drink that varied slightly depending on who made it. The egg cream, despite the name, there was never egg in it, and often no cream either. Just milk, seltzer, and chocolate syrup whipped fast enough to form a foam head like a small beer. New York luncheonettes guarded their technique like a family recipe, some insisting on you-bet syrup and nothing else. The sound of the seltzer bottle spritzing into the glass was half the appeal. When pressurized seltzer delivery disappeared from home and counter alike, so did the egg cream's proper fizz. The Green River soda, bright, almost radioactive green, lime-flavored, and served ice-cold in a fountain glass with a striped straw, the Green River was a Midwest staple, especially strong in Chicago. Kids ordered it because of the color as much as the taste. Small regional bottlers made the syrup, and when the big three soda companies bought up distribution routes through the 50s and 60s, quirky regional flavors like this one lost shelf space and eventually lost their syrup suppliers entirely. The Black Cow, root beer poured over vanilla ice cream served in a tall fountain glass with a long spoon and a straw both stuck in at once. The foam would climb halfway up the glass before the jerk even finished pouring. Some counters called it a root beer float, others insisted a Black Cow required a scoop pressed down first, then the soda poured slow along the side of the glass. Home freezers and canned root beer made the ritual unnecessary. Why wait for a counter when you could build one on your kitchen table? The Cherry Coke, fountain made. Before it ever came in a can, Cherry Coke was built by hand. Fountain Coca-Cola syrup, carbonated water, and a pump of cherry flavoring mixed to the customer's exact preference. Regulars had standing orders. Extra cherry, light on the fizz, over crushed ice only. That personal customization is the whole detail that got erased when Coca-Cola bottled a fixed cherry formula in the mid-'80s. Convenient, yes. But it meant the same drink everywhere, with no jerk to adjust it for you. Named after a Washington bartender who liked his gin with lime and soda, the fountain version dropped the alcohol and kept the sting. Fresh lime juice, simple syrup, and soda water poured over ice, sometimes with raspberry syrup added for a Cherry Ricky variation. It was sharp, not sweet, which made it unusual on menus dominated by chocolate and vanilla. Fresh citrus juicing took labor that fountains eventually couldn't justify, once bottled lime sodas hit the shelves for a fraction of the cost. The tin roof sundae, vanilla ice cream, hot fudge, and a scoop of Spanish peanuts, the salty crunch cutting straight through the sweetness. Some counters used marshmallow instead of fudge, but the peanuts were non-negotiable, always warmed slightly so they'd stick to the melting ice cream. The name supposedly came from a factory roof workers used to eat lunch on. It disappeared less from changing taste and more because peanut allergies made counters nervous about keeping shelled nuts in an open scoop bin near everything else. Named after a Russian count's chef, this one combined vanilla ice cream with candied chestnuts, dried fruit, and a touch of rum flavoring, topped with whipped cream and a cherry. It was considered a fancier order, something you got on a birthday rather than an ordinary Tuesday. The ingredients alone made it expensive to stock consistently. Chestnuts and candied fruit weren't cheap or easy to source year-round, and once the elaborate sundae fell out of fashion, nobody bothered reviving something this labor-intensive. The Broadway float. A float built with ginger ale instead of root beer or cola, vanilla ice cream and a splash of orange syrup swirled through it. Theater district counters served it before matinees, hence the name, and the citrus-ginger combination was meant to feel bright rather than heavy before a show. It never spread much beyond a handful of cities, because ginger ale itself fell out of daily rotation once cola dominated fountain syrup contracts in the 50s, squeezing out the lighter, more regional flavor combinations. Not a drink built from a recipe but from chaos. Kids would ask the jerk to fill their glass with a splash of every syrup on the counter. Cola, root beer, cherry, lime, chocolate. All mixed together into something nobody could really describe as tasting good. It was a rite of passage more than a treat, proof you were brave enough to drink it. Once syrup pumps moved behind closed panels for hygiene reasons, kids lost the visual spectacle of watching every flavor get added at once. The frap. In New England specifically, a frap meant a proper milkshake with ice cream blended in, distinct from a milkshake, which locally just meant flavored milk shaken without ice cream at all. Out-of-towners constantly got their order wrong, and counter staff took pride in correcting them gently. The thick, spoon-standing texture came from real hand-scooped ice cream, blended just enough to stay lumpy. Soft-serve machines and standardized menus eventually flattened this regional distinction until most counters stopped bothering to explain it. The banana split, built tableside. 3 scoops, 3 syrups, whipped cream nuts, and a cherry, split down the middle by an actual banana, served in a long boat-shaped glass dish, specifically designed for it. The presentation mattered as much as the taste, a special dish reserved for special orders, brought out with some ceremony. Once ice cream parlors became fast casual chains, the boat dishes were the first casualty. Paper cups were cheaper, stackable, and didn't need washing, but they killed the theater of the thing entirely. The malted milk shake. A true malted meant malt powder blended into the milkshake, giving it a slightly nutty, almost toasty flavor underneath the sweetness. Horlick's malt powder had been invented as an infant formula additive before soda jerks discovered what it did to a milkshake. The extra step, extra ingredient, and extra cost meant malted shakes slowly became a special request rather than the default. Most fast food shakes today skip malt powder entirely unless you specifically ask, and most people under 40 don't know to ask. Not from Boston at all, but from Detroit. This one paired Verner's ginger ale, a sharply spiced regional soda, with a scoop of vanilla ice cream. The ginger bite against the cold cream was meant to feel almost medicinal, in the old sense that a fountain drink could genuinely settle your stomach. Verner's stayed a Michigan area product for decades, and as regional bottlers got absorbed into national distribution, drinks tied to hyper-local sodas like this, one had nowhere left to be ordered. The Cherry Smash. A carbonated cherry drink distinct from a cherry Coke, built without any cola base at all, just cherry syrup, soda water, and often a maraschino cherry dropped in whole. Cherry Smash had its own dedicated syrup brand sold specifically to drugstore fountains, starting in the early 1900s. It was marketed almost like medicine, a tonic as much as a treat. Once cola syrup contracts became the standard fountain arrangement nationwide, single-flavor specialty syrups like Cherry Smash lost their shelf space entirely. The Horse's Neck, a tall glass with a long spiral of lemon peel draped over the rim, ginger ale poured over ice, and sometimes a dash of bitters for depth. The lemon peel was the whole point, cut in one continuous ribbon and hooked over the glass edge like a decoration. It required actual knife skill from the jerk, something modern fast service counters had no time to train for. As ginger ale moved to canned distribution, the theatrical bartender-style presentation disappeared along with the skill required to make it. The root beer float, frozen mug style, the float itself never disappeared, but the frosted glass mug version did. Fountains kept heavy glass mugs in the freezer specifically for root beer floats, so the outside would ice over the second root beer hit the glass. That crackling frost effect and the way condensation ran down your hand while you drank was half the sensory experience. Frozen mug storage took freezer space that modern fast food counters, cramped and turnover-focused, simply weren't willing to give up for a novelty presentation. The Coca-Cola float with fresh vanilla. Before vanilla extract got standardized into a syrup pump, some fountains scraped real vanilla bean into their ice cream base daily. And a Coke float made with that ice cream tasted noticeably different from one made with mass-produced vanilla. Regulars could genuinely tell the difference and asked for it by name. Once ice cream production moved to large commercial dairies supplying multiple counters at once, the daily hand-mixed vanilla base disappeared, and with it, a subtlety most people today wouldn't even know to miss. The fudge ripple sundae, a sundae built with fudge ripple ice cream rather than plain vanilla with fudge poured on top, meaning the chocolate was swirled through during the churning process itself. Fountains that made their own ice cream in the back would ripple the fudge by hand, dragging a spoon through the batch before it froze solid. That took real timing to get the ripple right, not too blended, not too separate. Pre-made commercial ice cream tubs replaced this by the 60s, arriving already frozen with generic mix-ins. The pineapple soda, a tropical outlier on most menus built from pineapple syrup and soda water, sometimes with a scoop of ice cream added to make it a pineapple float. It was popular specifically in summer months, marketed on hand-painted counter signs as a cooling treat. Pineapple syrup required importing real pineapple concentrate, which cost more and spoiled faster than cherry or chocolate syrup. When fountains started cutting slow-moving flavors to save shelf space, tropical options like pineapple were almost always first to go. The whipped cream soda, simple in concept, a straight soda of any flavor topped with a generous mound of hand-whipped cream rather than the canned aerosol version most people know today. The texture difference was significant. Real whipped cream held its shape differently and melted slower into the drink, changing the flavor as you worked your way down the glass. Aerosol whipped cream cans hit markets in the 50s and were simply faster for a busy counter, and few jerks kept whisking cream by hand once that option existed. The sarsaparilla, often confused with root beer but distinctly its own drink, made from real sassafras root and sarsaparilla vine extract, with an earthier, almost medicinal edge that root beer eventually smoothed out for mass appeal. Old-timers ordered it out of habit from an earlier generation, and younger customers often tried it once out of curiosity, and never again. When the FDA restricted saffrol, a compound naturally found in sassafras root, from food and drink production in 1960, true sarsaparilla syrup essentially became illegal to sell. The ice cream phosphate, a phosphate built with a scoop of ice cream added directly into the fizzing syrup and soda water rather than poured over afterward like a float. The ice cream would partially dissolve into the carbonated mixture, creating a texture between a drink and a dessert that doesn't really exist in any modern menu category. It required the acid phosphate additive that gave regular phosphates their sharp edge, and once that additive fell out of common fountain use, the whole ice cream phosphate category quietly vanished with it. The chocolate soda, hand-jerked, Not to be confused with a chocolate malt or a root beer float, a proper chocolate soda meant chocolate syrup, soda water, and a technique called jerking. Physically pulling the soda handle back and forth to aerate the mixture into a specific foam consistency before adding ice cream. This is where the term soda jerk actually came from. The physical labor and skill of jerking sodas by hand disappeared entirely once automated fountain dispensers took over in the 60s and 70s, removing the job the whole profession was named for. The counter itself and everything that came with it. More than any single drink, what disappeared was the marble counter, the spinning stool, the jerk who remembered your order, and the 20 minutes you spent sitting there while your ice cream melted slightly before you finished it. Drugstores were community hubs precisely because the fountain gave you a reason to stay. Chain pharmacies calculated that a pharmacy counter selling pills moved more profit per square foot than a soda fountain ever could. And, one by one, the counters came out to make room for aisles of packaged goods instead. So here's the thing that connects every single one of these 25 entries. None of them vanished because people stopped liking sugar, fizz, or ice cream. They vanished because efficiency won an argument that nobody realized was even being had. Bottling replaced building. Freezers replaced fresh scoops. Aerosol cans replaced whisks. Every convenience saved a business a few seconds and a few cents. And every one of those small savings quietly deleted a small piece of ritual that used to make a Tuesday afternoon feel like something worth sitting down for. If this trip back to the marble counter brought back a memory or two, hit like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one.